Hey, thank you all for joining us tonight. My name is Gaynell Brady, and I am the Executive Director of the Lower Ninth Ward Homeownership Association. The Lower Ninth Ward Homeownership exists to make sure that homeowners are secure in their homeownership and that there's an annual increase in the population, the number of homeowners that we have in the Lower Ninth Ward. And ultimately, we just want to make sure that the Lower Ninth Ward is a quality neighborhood for those who live there. And tonight, I am super excited to have Claire Comagera with us tonight. And also Sarah assisting me as well from the Lower Ninth Ward Homeownership, hanging out in the background. We are delighted to start this partnership with the Urban Conservancy to bring you all this wonderful program dealing with something that everyone in the South pretty much faces, but more importantly in the Lower Ninth Ward is just flooding in our yards. We've heard you guys, we heard you loud and clear that we're having issues with just water hanging on our properties, and we're just excited to have Claire here tonight helping us out with some tips on how to manage that and to talk a little bit about what the Urban Conservancy does and just some solutions for you all. So Claire, take it over.
Hi, thanks for that, Gaynell. I just want to make sure my presentation, it's showing on the screen. It's good to go? Awesome. So as Gaynell said, my name is Claire, and I am the project manager at Urban Conservancy, a nonprofit in New Orleans focused on equitable land use. Thank you for inviting us to speak tonight. The Urban Conservancy has been around for about 20 years now. We've done all sorts within and for the built environment. One of our largest programs, the Front Yard Initiative, or FYI, focus on building a more resilient city. So tonight I'm going to talk about FYI, what green infrastructure is, and how it can help reduce localized flooding on your property. So the Front Yard Initiative is the Urban Conservancy's response to excessive paving in New Orleans. We help individuals remove unwanted paving from their properties to promote a more beautiful and resilient New Orleans. So how does removing excessive concrete make for a more resilient New Orleans, you may be asking yourself? Well, we will definitely be getting into the more specifics of how concrete actually makes flooding worse. But for now, I just want to mention that I know a lot of properties in the lower ninth don't actually have a lot of excessive concrete, but still have a lot of standing water or flooding issues. FYI not only encourages homeowners to remove concrete, but also to implement green infrastructure. So let's first talk a bit about what it means to live with water in a city that has a complex relationship with it. New Orleans was founded over 300 years ago specifically because of the region's unique water assets. The lake, the river, the Gulf were all extraordinary means of commerce, but they also complicated the logistics of settling in this low-lying, swampy area surrounded by water that would, and still does, regularly flood. For many residents, this photo up on screen now can represent living with water. After an average rain event, we have ankle-deep water, car flooding, standing water for days on end, mosquitoes, even duck ponds. In this situation, water could be a thing to fear, something that makes our lives harder. But at FYI, we are working to change that, one block, one house at a time. So let's evaluate some aspects of our environment that make living in New Orleans challenging. First, we live in one of the rainiest areas of the country, experiencing over 60 inches of rain annually. That's almost double the amount Seattle receives. This is because when it rains here, it pours, changing your everyday rain event into an unpredictable, life-changing flood. Second, New Orleans is at a very low elevation. While not all of the city is under sea level, only about 50% is actually, nowhere is higher than 43 feet above sea level, while most areas are around 10 feet below sea level and 10 feet above sea level. This is really different from places that can vary in hundreds of feet in elevation. Third, we are overly reliant on old and inadequate gray infrastructure. Gray infrastructure refers to traditional forms of water management, such as levees, floodgates, and pumping systems. At the city level, we've heavily relied on a single approach to water management. Every drop that falls must be pumped out. This approach is not only resource intensive, but is also the leading cause of subsidence in our region. Subsidence is the sinking of land. Many of you are probably overly familiar with this concept. Subsidence leads to foundation problems for your house, potholes, and that appear overnight, and yes, more flooding. So we end up at an even lower elevation than where we started. And now we have these great big concrete walls, yes, preventing seasonal flooding, but also preventing new soil being introduced to our quickly depleting lands. Unlike other cities, the great infrastructure we built here can't keep up with the amount of rainfall we get. It can't completely prevent flooding, but it does deprive our land of the water it needs. Finally, overdevelopment has exacerbated our flooding issue. As you can see from this aerial view of New Orleans, what was once all wetlands has been totally paved over. We have taken a permeable surface and made it impermeable. This leaves us to rely almost solely on the city's pumping systems to remove stormwater. Our water table isn't being naturally recharged with rainwater, leading to further subsidence. We experience the effects of this every day. This all leads us to where we are now. Where do we go from here? That's a rough one. There are no clear-cut, easy solutions, and a lot of them are not within our own individual control. But something that we can do as individuals to help reduce flooding and subsidence is reduce the impermeable surfaces on our property and add a lot of green infrastructure on our property. So let's take a look at what happens when we rely only on great infrastructure for water management. This is an unhealthy block. Rain falls, hits paved surfaces, runs into the street, and then often overfills the drainage system, causing flooding. Because water does not make it back into the ground to keep the water table full, clay soils expand and contract, causing subsidence. That's when we see problems such as foundation issues and potholes. In contrast, this is a healthy block. What you see here is a lot of green space, native trees and plants. Cars are parked on the street instead of their yards and sidewalks, and there's overall less impermeable surfaces. A healthy block handles water on site, rain falls, and instead of being pumped out, it soaks into the ground. This recharges the water table, slowing subsidence and keeping our soils stable. With the help of FYI, this is what it means to live with water now. All the rainfall is held on site in a bioswale and a permeable driveway. This is the after picture to the original duck pond we looked at earlier, after an equivalent rainfall event. Much different. There's a little bit standing water, but it's standing where it should be in the rain gardens, and it is completely gone within 72 hours, which is very different for a lot of homeowners' experiences. Rain has changed from a stressful event to a peaceful one. The homeowners no longer have to rush out to move their cars or create makeshift bridges to reach their house. They can sit on the porch and enjoy their new yard, knowing their home is protected from flooding. Plus, they are reducing flooding for their entire street because they are located at the lowest point of their street. Flooding is often homeowners' first priority and what brings them to us, but soon they learn that the green infrastructure and plants they choose have multifold effects. For example, added trees decrease the heat island effect, and native plants bring back lost habitat that are important to wildlife and pollinators. And new green spaces encourage people to get outside. What's good for the planet is also good for people. Now that you understand the framework of why we do the Front Yard Initiative, let's learn more about what green infrastructure is, because I keep on saying the word. So what is green infrastructure? It can come in many forms, but basically it's any system that mimics nature to manage stormwater. There are three main ways green infrastructure helps manage stormwater: retention, detention, and filtration. Retention is the holding of water. So when stormwater is retained, it will never go into our drainage systems and instead be absorbed into the ground, watering our plants and recharging the water table and stabilizing our soils to prevent that subsidence we were talking about earlier. Detention is the slowing down of the water. So when stormwater is detained, it will eventually go into our drainage system, but the difference here is that the runoff has time to be partially absorbed into the ground, and not all of our runoff is running into the drainage system at once. This alleviates a lot of pressure and reduces the risk of overwhelming our drainage system. And filtration is exactly what it sounds like. Green infrastructure removes pollutants from our stormwater. There are actually no filtration systems in place for stormwater. So when runoff hits our catch basins, it gets pumped into the lake as is. This, as you can imagine, not good for the environment. Now let's take a look at some popular forms of green infrastructure. Native plants are some of the easiest forms of green infrastructure that you can integrate into your property or onto your property. Native plants have evolved alongside our unique ecosystem for a very, very long time, making them well suited to thrive here. They are made to survive our hot summers, our occasional freezes, our deluges, our dry periods, our humidity, our soil, everything. So this means less time spent on maintenance, less money spent on replacement plants, and that you are creating lost habitat for native pollinators, birds, and other critters. So how do native plants aid in water management? Well, check out the roots. Turf grass has roots less than 1 foot compared to switchgrass, whose roots grow up to 9 feet. That's like twice my height. The deeper the roots, the more rainwater they're absorbing. Roots hold soil in place, preventing subsidence and erosion, and at the same time, roots aerate the soil, keeping it flexible, preventing compaction. Because when your soil compacts, it can become almost as impermeable as concrete. Plus, this is why native plants do better during our long stretches of dry weather. Their roots have evolved in order to be able to reach our groundwater. Some plants are even known to remove harsh pollutants from our water and soil. We have compiled a pamphlet of some really great native plants that is available on our website to get you started. If you're a big birder, there are some native plants that birds love. Here they are on screen. Berries provide food. Some of these plants make for good nesting material. And turkcap has a lot of nectar that attracts hummingbirds, and who doesn't like to see hummingbirds in their yard? And so our next form of green infrastructure is rain gardens. You can take your native plants a step further and plant them in these rain gardens. So what are rain gardens? They're an excavated area that uses special bioengineered soils and native water-loving plants to create storage space for water, slowing, retaining, and filtering stormwater before it reaches our drainage system. So what I mean by bioengineered soil, I just mean a blend of sand, compost, and topsoil that is made to allow water to seep into the ground. You can see examples of rain gardens pictured on screen, especially this one on the far right. You can see how all this stormwater went into the rain garden is sitting there instead of flooding your streets, your property. Here's a good look at the excavation required to build a rain garden. Somewhere between 6 inches and 3 feet is best. And then when you fill the rain garden back up, you want to use well-drained soils, that bioengineered soil again. Usually a mixture of 80% sand, 10% topsoil, and then like 3 to 5% organic matter or compost is commonly used. There are some local shops that actually sell rain garden soil specific mixes, such as Schmelly's. The reason why you want to replace the soil that's there in the first place is that we have mostly clay soils in New Orleans, and they get compacted really easily. And like I said earlier, when they become compacted, they can be as impermeable as concrete. It also isn't healthy enough to sustain the new environment you're trying to create there. So if you keep on putting plants in the ground and you feel like you're watering them the correct amount and they're getting the correct sunlight, it might be your soil. Here's a cross-sectional view of a rain garden. You can see, like most green infrastructures, that there's a lot going on underneath the surface that aids in water management. Okay, moving on to permeable surfaces as green infrastructure. Pictured here is geogrid for a driveway being installed. You guys might be familiar. I think Parkway has that parking lot that's made with geogrid, and it holds like thousands of gallons of stormwater. So some FYI projects focus on permeable driveways, pathways, patios, or infiltration trenches. This creates storage space for stormwater to go and maintains a stable area for light traffic, pedestrian or parking. The pitched driveway here can hold over 2,000 gallons of stormwater. The homeowner has actually gone back to us to let us know that her basement used to flood even during a typical rain event. But now, even after 5 inches of rain within an hour, she is left with no standing water. It is the first time apparently her bottom basement area has not flooded in years for a rain event such as that size. This is an example of a driveway using geogrid. Geogrid is important for holding and dispersing gravel, which prevents the gravel from compacting and turning into an impermeable surface over time. It also maximizes your water detention. So going back a slide, that plastic stuff that this truck is on top of right now, that is geogrid. It's usually made from like a recycled plastic. A really popular brand here is called TrueGrid. And remember, most of what makes green infrastructure effective is what is going on beneath the surface. As you can see here, an area has been excavated with the middle dug even deeper for a perforated pipe to be placed. The pipe is then covered with number 57 washed gravel, and then the whole area is covered with a non-woven permeable filter fabric. This is the finished product. It's a permeable driveway with a rain garden that holds an estimated 4,000 gallons of storm water. And it looks just much better than the original product. Something I wanted to point out here is that since the pipe is dug in the middle, it is actually directing all the storm water into that middle part and moving it away from their home. So green infrastructure is also a really good system to manage where your storm water ends up, because you want it away from your house. So you can even have permeable pathways within a garden. The gravel paths link water storage throughout. This is a good example of a mix of materials working together for compounding effects. And it just looks really nice. In this driveway example, you can see that the aesthetic remains, but mondo grass has been grown in between the squares to shift perspective and soak up water. So maybe you like your driveway the way it is, but you just want to help relieve flooding. Well, this is a really good example that you're still able to do that with green infrastructure. This is an example of a gravel driveway without GeoGrid. GeoGrid is really great, but it is not required to create a permeable driveway. Here's an example of a unique permeable patio made of reclaimed broken concrete. It keeps that patio feel without sacrificing permeability. Monograph is also planted in between these stones. It's a really popular plant choice. Rain barrels are another really cool form of green infrastructure. They are typically just barrels that are set up in a way to capture runoff from impermeable surfaces, such as your roof. They hold storm water for later use. The rain barrels pictured are directly connected to the home's rain gutters. This is an example of detaining water. The rain barrels are not meant to hold this water forever, but are preventing it from going into the drainage system for the moment. Rain barrels work best alongside rain gardens or infiltration trenches as pictured. You can see that here's the little yellow rain barrel, and it's right next to a rain garden. This way they can be easily drained before the next storm. There's no point in holding the same 50 gallons of stormwater indefinitely. I also personally really like rain barrels because it kind of brings back the idea that water is a necessary and precious resource. And sometimes that can be lost when you are being overwhelmed with it, but water is not really supposed to be a nuisance as much as, a resource that we need to live. So it's really great. You can harvest your own rainwater, water your plants with it. There are many more forms of green infrastructure. They vary in scale and purpose, but ultimately strive to achieve the same thing, managing water in a sustainable manner. I can definitely stay on after the presentation for any of those of you who would like to discuss other forms of green infrastructure, but I'm not really going to go into them here. This is like a pictured constructed wetland, really cool, something you obviously wouldn't put on your property, but it does help manage stormwater. So let's review some green infrastructure ideal design features. Trees are great for shade, ecosystem, and water capture. One of our partners, you might have heard of them, Solnola, will plant a free native tree for you if you apply. on their website. Native plants can make a huge difference for your yard. We can recommend plant cells, growers, and species. We also made a native plant list that I mentioned earlier with detailed information to help you choose the species most suitable to your property, because you have to take into consideration sun, the amount of water you're putting it. If you're putting it in a lower area, it's going to get more water. If you're putting it in a higher area, it's going to get a little bit less. And also, once again, green infrastructure is not traditional landscaping. It has a much larger impact in storing stormwater than regular sod or grass does. We recommend a mix of materials for a compounding effect. So not just a permeable driveway, not just a rain garden. Usually if you add, multitude of them, they work better together. Oh, did I get rid of the slide? Oh well. So now we're going to go into some examples of past FYI projects. I like this one here. So we're just of green infrastructure that has been actually installed around New Orleans. So I like this one a lot because this is a very, a New Orleans problem, a tiny side alley that is made inaccessible because it's always muddy and overgrown. You can see on the before image, you get a lot of standing water, and this can create mosquito problems, foundation problems. But in the after picture, you can see they have a neat little French drain or infiltration trench. They mean the same thing. That captures all the runoff from their roof and any runoff that also might be coming from their neighbors. So this is a really great popular form of green infrastructure around New Orleans. Also, it makes it more accessible and it looks nicer. A lot of people want to keep their parking spaces, but still want to help reduce flooding problems on their property. These are two really great examples where the homeowners aren't sacrificing any hard surfaces, but are still holding an absolutely wild amount of stormwater. I forgot the exact number, but somewhere in the thousands. Especially the one on the right. If anything, they're creating more parking space, because I don't know about y'all, but I would not want to park in the before image. And also, this is really great alternative for, people who don't have green thumbs. Maybe you're not a big gardener, but you still want to reduce flooding. So, permeable hard surfaces are totally an option for green infrastructure. You do not have to get rid of your driveway. But some of us are big gardeners. So this homeowner has a lot of edible plants. You can see some infiltration trenches breaking up the garden beds in a really interesting and utilitarian way. There's a lot of pollinator attracting native plants in the garden. It's a really cool take on my opinion of green infrastructure. You can get really creative with it. I like that a lot. These homeowners replaced their sidewalk with an ADA compliant permeable bricks sidewalk. The bricks are not mortared in and are instead set into sand to maintain their permeability. You can also see that they added rain gardens next to their house and in the right way with some trees. Another cool thing about permeable surfaces such as this sidewalk is that if part of it breaks, it is much easier to fix than concrete because you can just fix that part. A cost-effective way to implement some green infrastructure on your property is to just remove part of your concrete. So you can see here, they didn't remove the entire driveway, but they cut out a strip in the middle and they added a rain garden. Some people add a French drain down the middle. This is a really cost-effective and still effective way to reduce flooding on your property. So this property is really cool. They only removed 1,000 square feet of concrete, but they are holding over 3,000 gallons of stormwater. This puts this in perspective. 1,000 square foot rain garden is holding stormwater for over 3,500 square feet of impermeable surfaces without overflowing. Also, once again, it just looks better in my opinion. I don't know, a concrete front yard. I know, once again, a lot of y'all in the Lower Ninth neighborhood don't have completely paved over front yards, but this is a really pretty alternative to just sod as well. The public right-of-way is the space between the sidewalk and the street. It is the city's property, but you can remove excessive paving and install green infrastructure or a colorful garden like this one. It's a great example of how even tiny spaces can be transformed into feeling like a front yard. Once again, I know the Lower Ninth usually has pretty large yards, But even this small, like what is it, 600 square foot garden is holding over 400 gallons of storm water during a rain event. So and it's just very colorful and pretty. This is where that slide is not supposed to be here. Anyway, here's some more past projects. Also, you can see the before, after, and now. So green infrastructure likes to grow into itself, and it actually holds more stormwater over time. At FYI, we don't encourage solely replacing concrete with grass, also called sod. However, this homeowner has a small dog, and also some people just really like grass, which is fine. So if you don't want to replace all of your grass, you can still put in planting areas around the perimeter of your yard with native plants and shrubs. So you can see like next to their house and next to the edge of their gate, they still have rain gardens that are holding a lot of storm water. So those were all of our past projects. We talked all about what green infrastructure is and why it's so necessary for New Orleans. So I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about our program, the Front Yard Initiative. We are a reimbursement and environmental education program that works with homeowners to manage their water where it lands and help reduce localized street flooding. We do this by reimbursing eligible homeowners to remove impermeable concrete in their front yards at $2.50 per square foot up to 500 square feet. Now, this program is not for everyone since a lot of homeowners don't really have any concrete in their front yards, but still experience standing water issues. But if you are interested in participating in the FYI program, or you're just interested in learning more about green infrastructure or the FYI program in general, you can sign up for one of our upcoming design workshops. Our next workshop is actually this Thursday, March 11th from 2 to 3 p.m., and you can register on our website. Our website also has a lot of really great resources for homeowners to implement green infrastructure on their property in a cost-effective and time-effective manner. All right, if there are any questions, I think Sarah and Gaynell are moderating, but you guys can also put them in the chat and I am ready to answer questions.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Claire. If you have any questions, please place them in the chat on the Zoom if you're online with us, or either on Facebook. We are monitoring both. And Claire, I noticed a comment from Ann. She said we have more completely paved front yards in the lower Ninth Ward every day. So
yeah, so that's something I noticed sometimes talking to homeowners who come to us, is that they say they originally put the concrete in their yard to help reduce flooding, and it's so ironic, but like I get it, because you're thinking like, oh, it gets muddy in my yard and I can't step on it, but it does actually worsen the problem. But yeah, that's definitely something I've noticed too, Anne, is that more people are putting concrete trying to fix the problem.
Okay, and I'm looking at those. There's another question on the chat. Does this strictly only cover the front yards? This person has only a small amount of concrete to remove in their front yard, but they also have 2 sidewalks along both sides of the house that they want removed as well.
So it depends if your sidewalks are visible from the street. If you can see them from the street, then they also count. If you're not sure, you can sign up anyway, and we can come check it out or look it up on Google and confirm that for you. So yeah, they can count, but like if you have a gate that you can't see through, then they do not count.
Got it. And I'm just checking everywhere. Okay, they said thank you. And I'm looking around and I don't see any questions. Oh, no, one more. Does this program provide financial assistance for installation? They need a French drain installed.
No, the Front Yard Initiative doesn't, but I do recommend you email me so like we can discuss this further if there's another way we can help you. My email's up on the screen, FYI@urbanconservancy.org. We are trying to work on more programs to help homeowners just install green infrastructure, because like I said earlier, I know it's not always concrete that's the problem. people without concrete still get standing water. So
Mhm. Okay. I don't see any more on our Zoom. And again, if you have any questions, be sure to answer them either on the Zoom or either on our Facebook channel. We are monitoring both. And just comments, great program, Claire. Everybody say wonderful presentation. You did an amazing job.
thank you.
I'm just checking every single place that I posted this. And I don't see any questions anywhere, but thank you so much. I do have one question for everyone. We are considering offering a rain barrel workshop in the future, which is one of the things that Claire mentioned. So if you are interested in that, just drop a yes in the chat. We'll email it to everyone if we decide to do it and let you know. Because of COVID, we'll probably have to reduce the number of participants. But if you are interested in that, just let me know. MA, who's outside in the digital world, said she learned a lot and said, this is a great option. Thank you for such an important information. I am seeing that, Claire. So
What?
that. Claire, there's another question. It's the list of native plants useful for green infrastructure on your website. So
Yes, it is on our website. You just navigate to urbanconservancy.org, go to the Front Yard Initiative page, go to the resource tab, and then there'll be like an FYI plant list. If you can't find it, just email me once again at FYI@urbanconservancy.org, and I can send you a link.
yes. And then we'll also place a link for the native plants on our website under your program information page too. So that way it'll be easily accessible for everyone.
Perfect.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any questions. Again, Claire, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday evening with us. Sarah, I appreciate you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for cheerleading in the audience, MA. Appreciate you as well. And thank you all for coming out and supporting the Lower Ninth Ward Homeownership Association. If you enjoyed what you've watched today and you want to see more of it, we love emails. Definitely email me at director@l9wha.org and let me know what you guys thought. We appreciate feedback on any of the programs that you've observed. We're going to record this program. It actually is being recorded now, and it will be available on our Facebook page on the events section. And we're also going to post this on the YouTube page as well. So be sure to follow us on Facebook if you're not doing so, and also on YouTube as well. So thank you all for coming out, and we appreciate everybody. Good night, everyone.